Mike. How's it going?
Good evening, Frank.
Good evening, Mike.
Great to see you.
Great to see you, yeah.
How are we doing?
Yeah, I'm doing fabulous.
Yeah?
Yeah, really good. Things are, staying in the moment as much as I can.
I love that.
Yeah.
Trying.
Until I fall out of the moment.
All part of it, right?
Yeah, just getting back on track.
That's it.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's like I love Wednesdays because a lot of thoughts come up in my head, and until Wednesday happens, so to speak, unless I'm talking with clients, what have you, I have to get out of my head. So like Wednesday, like me and Mike finish up here, it's like my head is completely clear till tomorrow morning, and then it starts filling up again.
Get it all out.
It's like a release. It's like it's a good thing. And we were talking about this earlier about like having your imagination and having thoughts put in it, and we want to imprint it onto the outside world. For one, we want to let go of it. So if you hold on to it and don't experience it, that's the torture of life. It's kind of like a dream you never experienced. It could torture you because you want to give it off to the world, but maybe because you believe you can't have it, you don't fulfill the dream, or the imagination doesn't solidify it in the physical world. But it's about getting rid of it. Once I put it out in the world, it's no longer mine, and there's a relief to it.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I kind of want to touch on that today. What you just said. A little piece. The worthiness factor. This is something for me personally, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people out there. We often don't feel like we deserve to feel happy.
Yeah.
And that is a big block for a lot of people out there. We feel like in order to feel a certain way or to relax, even relax, we have to deserve it. We've been conditioned this way from a very young age. But when you talk to people and you're like, why aren't you happy? Why don't you relax? They don't feel like they deserve it. I haven't done enough. I haven't checked enough boxes off of society's to-do list in order to feel like I have accomplished or I am deserving of this fictitious idea, that we all create. Like I have not, made X amount of money or had children or bought a house or whatever.
Yeah.
So I can't feel worthy.
Yeah.
This is a big block.
Yeah,
let's talk about that.
You could be a billionaire, and if your worthiness is represented from the outside world, you'll never feel worthy because there's always more to get.
There's a lot of millionaires and billionaires out there that don't feel worthy.
Yeah, and then obviously poor people too. It's all over the spectrum. So when you actually look at it, so worthiness is a state, just like deservingness is a state. And I think we touched on this last week, but it's just something we could touch on for the rest of our lives, and never get to to the bottom of it. But I like to keep trying. But when you're in a state, say like the state of Arizona, you're going to see mountains and valleys and cactus. But if you're looking to see an ocean, you have to leave the state and go to a state where there's an ocean, such as California. Now, it's not to pin mountains against the ocean. It's ridiculous. They're both beautiful. But if you're expecting to see the ocean prior to going to California, this is where we go wrong. So you must shut yourself off to the outside world and to enter into the state in which you want to be. So when you're in a state of joy, the thoughts that come across your head are nothing but joyous thoughts. When you're in a state of fear, the thoughts that come through are thoughts of fear. It's not like a thought of fear crept into the state of joy. You fell into the state of fear, and that's all there is fear. So when you're focused on the outside world, it's always fleeting. That's why you can't grab it. And so when you're trying to grab the outside world, I don't care how many cars, how many houses you have, you can't grab them, can't hold them. They keep fleeting to some extent. But when you go inward, that spirit is never fleeting. It's always forever expanding. But then through your imagination, it allows you to project what vision you have inside onto the outside world, and then you experience the material world. So me and Mike are not here to disassociate or tell people not to be in the material world. Quite the contrary. It just don't put the cart in front of the horse. Put the horse in front of the cart, and you have to go inward. Find the state in which you want to be in to have the experience in which you want to have, and it will come through. But you have to let go of having because we're too focused. Like, okay, when I get this, I'll be happy. Like you said this a lot. And I'm like, you'll never be happy from that standpoint. Like if I get to if I'm waiting to walk on water and I'm miserable, I'm just going to bitch about how my shoes are getting wet when I hit the water. And even though I can muster up the fact of floating across the water without sinking, I'm still going to have an issue with it because I'm focused on that. But it's not that.
I guess, like, for me personally, I remember really thinking, like, I don't deserve to relax. I haven't accomplished enough. And it's this, you got to get out, you got to hustle, you got to grind. And I wouldn't allow myself to relax.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
In fact, I looked at it as like weakness. I was like, no, that's you not, wanting this. Don't you get out there. You're worth more. You can do this. And it was such a self-hurting experience,
It was torture.
Yeah, it was literally torture.
Which teaches you not to do that. So
Absolutely.
It serves a purpose. Yeah.
But I remember going through that and thinking it was so real, and I was like, I don't deserve this because I haven't accomplished these things. And it's not until you let go of having to accomplish anything that your mind is clear enough to allow you to accomplish things. And so when you're at home saying, I don't deserve to be happy, I haven't done enough, or I haven't made enough money, or I haven't gone to enough schooling, I haven't gone to university, whatever. These are all man-made, created ideas that you're living by, and they mean nothing. And the sooner you see through this, the sooner you allow yourself to
and
let go.
There's a correlation. The reason man came up with these ideas, it's not this arbitrary, man in the ivory tower. It's like, let's just mess with these people. One day, I'm just kind of tell it in the story form. One day, somebody was off doing something, and the world noticed the person, and they were successful. So all they could do is accredit his accolades and what he did to get there, or what she did to get there, and they try to copy it. But what you don't understand is how the person actually felt prior to the doing. Therefore, then the accomplishment is just the solidifying the imagination onto the outside world. But when you actually observe it, you're missing the whole thing. It's almost like looking in a mirror and observing with my hands up, and then this is my right hand, but when I look in the mirror, it's going to appear that it's my left hand. It's going to look backwards. So when you try to reverse engineer what somebody did to replicate their what you call success, it'll never happen. It's never what they did. It's how they felt. And even people who wrote books on this, and they didn't understand the laws, but they fell into them, but they felt lucky, so they continue to duplicate this. But they wrote a book on the 7 steps to get here. And I'm like, where were those 7 steps prior to getting there? They got there. And then they revert. Well, how did I get here? Well, let's go back. And all they did is go back 7 steps. They could have stopped at 5. They could have went to 9. Where?
What has the best ring to it?
How many chapters do I want to write in this book? And 7 seems to be, a number that's stuck within humanity because there's 7 days in a week. There's 7 breakdowns of the DNA, even though there's 12. There's 5 parts that are doubled and then 2 singles, so it's 5 and 2. Which is 7, but the 5 are doubled, that's 10. So when you start to look at it that way, it's like, okay, you can see how 7 is significant. So maybe that's why they use the word 7. But no one could ever follow that path, not even the person who wrote the book, and get the same result. They can't.
Elaborating on that point, this is what I mean when I say we are all talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
When it doesn't matter if you're looking at this from like a business standpoint, these different life coaches, these different Robert Kiyosaki types, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all of these people, everybody, what they're preaching, these different plans, these different, these steps to this to achieve, everybody is talking about the same thing, and it's going within.
Yeah. And if you don't go within, without is nothing. Because actually, we all go within. We all have an imagination.
We're just not aware we're, in control of
Yeah, because I was talking to someone the
it's
other
kind
day.
of running on autopilot.
Yeah, and it's true. We all imagine. You imagine the hell you're living in because you couldn't be living in hell unless you imagined it. And so when I say you're imagining hell, you're being influenced by outward influences of your imagination. It's kind of like if you're present. We were talking about this earlier. If you're fully present when you actually go into imagination, there isn't going to be any non-preferential attributes into your imagination. But I was telling to somebody the other day about like the power of imagination. And but I remember years ago, I like, okay, I want to imagine myself living in a 15,000 square foot house and 6 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and then I'm like, oh shit, I got to clean all these bathrooms come Sunday. It's like, holy shit. So even in my imagination, there was this like dread. And why? It's because at some point, before I got to this place I was in, I was actually cleaning my house. So if you live in a house, 2,000 square foot, and then you're going to move it into one that's 15,000 square foot, you still assume you're carrying that same body that has to clean each bathroom. It's like, oh shit, it was tough cleaning 2.5 bathrooms, let alone 5. And it's like, yeah, I'll just stick to this house. And yeah, but
this is what the mind does.
But
this is what we do.
But this is our imagination.
Yep.
But when I'm present, that doesn't seep in because that has to come from my past.
We hide by saying we want to be realistic.
No, what I'm saying is,
you know what I mean?
How would I know to clean my house in the present moment? Because it's something I did in the past. Because when I'm sitting on the couch in my lotus position, whatever position I'm imagining, I'm not cleaning my bathroom. And it's very interesting is when you become fully present, you'll only imagine in a preferential setting. And then you actually generate a feeling, and that feeling then will give you an output of what things to do. It'll give you impulses.
But you see what you're describing? We dull our imagination because we say, oh, I need to be realistic about this.
But know this.
And there's no realistic about your imagination.
But I also want to emphasize on this. People in the world today have great imaginations. We really do. Like, when I look around us, yes, I could point to the news and show us the hellish imagination. But I could also point out and find out way more great stuff that's going on there that the news is not reporting. Like I'm at the gym, and at the gym they show these couple of different, they have screens up and they'll show sports, but they show these amazing superhuman things people do. Like someone like flipping off a building and landing 20 feet down the ground, and this crazy stuff that you only had with that CGI could do, and they're actually doing it, and it's not. So there is more of that growth going on than we're led on to believe. We are expanding as a species tremendously. It's probably why we don't put up with the stuff we see on the news. But people are like, oh, my God, the world's going crazy. I'm like, is it really going crazy? I'm like, if you went back and just studied any bit of history, just go back, 200 years ago, there was a lot more violence with a lot less people on the planet, and it was acceptable. Nowadays, you yell at somebody, you call them a wrong adjective, they get offensive. Now, I joke about that, but there's a lot less violence with 3 times as many people on the planet from 200 years ago. How many people on the planet 200 years ago? Early 19th century it was maybe 3 billion. Now we got 8 billion. So 200 years ago it was even before that. So we're in the 21st century. So I could have my figures wrong, but you get the idea of what I'm talking about.
No, exactly.
So there is a lot more cooperation on the planet. So me and Mike want to let you know is we're on a good path. You're not doing anything wrong. We're doing everything really good. But people are trying to make us like you're doing something wrong, and the guilt comes in. And the guilt is what diminishes the moment in time when you're having that great imagination. I ought not to be doing this. People out there starving. I'm like, you living in a 15,000 square foot house you want isn't going to take a sandwich away from someone. Matter of fact, if you choose to do that, you can actually help somebody somewhere else. Because we're not running out of resources. We're not.
As much as the media wants us to think.
Well, yeah, because if
we paint this picture that everything's finite.
If I can convince you there's finite amount of resources, I can then be the middleman in the distribution of them, and I can make a lot. I could then become an infinite billionaire, infinite trillionaire. I could be infinite wealth. It's a funny game we play. Yes, the earth can be measured in a finite setting. You could, the square footage of the earth. But there's infinite amount of people that are going to live on it throughout its lifetime. There's infinite things to do on it. I can have one field of corn that will have infinite amounts of, crop over its lifetime, over its infinity. But yet there might be a finite spread of this land that can actually measure it and come to a conclusion that it's, 30 acres. But what can I grow in those 30 acres? How many, 30 acres can, if you distribute it right, can almost feed the world, so to speak. I'm just using this as a perspective onto how we look at things. We're the ones who create limitations where it doesn't need to be. We put on this limited field of gravity and other, but when you start understanding the laws of gravity, then you can work with it. And then it looks like you're defying it. You're not really defying it, but you're playing with it, and you're finding ways of dealing with gravity that you never seen before, like the young guys doing the parkour and the young people, I should say. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, years ago, if you told someone, I jumped off a 20-story building, and I'm like, and you're still alive, a 20-foot building, but yet you see these people and they know the trajectory, they know the angle to hit. So when they hit, they're actually moving in the direction. So it can be explained by physics what's happening, but somehow they know how to do it. And I don't know if they know geometry and physics as well as they do their own body and how to anticipate it.
They're going with the flow.
They're going with the flow. So there's an internal guidance system for, and they're like, hey, I want to do this, It's kind of like when you're a kid, you jumped out of a tree, but you knew you're going to be fine. Now, if I was in that same tree with the belief system I bought into, I'm like, oh, shit. Where's there a ladder? I need a cherry picker to pull me out of this tree. It's like I'm gonna hurt myself. That's why I sleep on the floor now. It's like kids stay low on the ground, But again, these are all beliefs. Even I jokingly talk about, I'm getting old, but that's a state of mind because my cells in my body still give birth to new cells, no matter how old I get. All right, it's true. There's always going to be shifting and changing. So I'm not here trying to stop the aging process. That's just ridiculous. I don't even know what that means. Whatever happens, happens. And it's interesting, biologists are measuring, when I actually stay more present, I slow down and compress time. Therefore, the biology, the cellular structure slows down, and therefore I'm slowing down the aging process. But if I tried to do that, I would actually speed up the aging process because I would be worried. I'm like, oh, shit. So there is paradox with all this stuff.
There is.
And the paradox is when you think what's happening in the outside world will actually show you it's working. But you got to drop what's happening out there because what created this outward is how we feel. So what is a belief? A belief is nothing but a feeling. So let's take the word belief because it has so much weird stuff around it. It's a feeling. How do you feel? Will create the state in which you're going to, if I feel great, thoughts that come into my head are going to be great thoughts. If I feel like shit, I'm going to get shitty thoughts. It isn't the shitty thought that made me feel shitty. It was a state of shittiness. It's the state of Arizona is why I see a cactus. It's being on the coast, the west coast of in California is why I see the ocean. Not the other way around.
How did you
I have no
allow yourself to...
I have no idea.
Good answer. Everything is just a story. Shit. Well, let me tell you what I play in my head.
Actually, I love to tell people like, hey, do you kill? I'm like, hell if I know. Karen's like, why were you late? Hell if I know. It doesn't really work in those, but I try. It's like, I wish I knew. I'm going to pull a Socrates on you. I know nothing. Yeah, but it's funny because she doesn't allow me to get away with that.
Wonder why.
I have no idea.
Tell me how you personally allowed yourself to feel worthy. Like, what was it for you? I know what it was for me.
All right. In order to feel unworthy, you had to feel worthy. So the thing is, people are like, oh, I don't feel worthy. I'm like, you can't be depressed unless you're happy. You can't be awake unless you're tired or know what tired's like. You can't be full unless you know what hunger is like. You can't be hungry unless you know what full's like. So we're getting back into the principles of polarity. So we will focus when we're unhappy and dismiss when we're happy. We only talk about the times we're depressed. It's like, 10 things could have gone right today, but that one thing we're going to talk about. And why do we talk about it? Because it was unusual. So why not talk about it? There was a shooting today. Because it doesn't happen every day. So yes, but people are like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, but don't get carried away with it. We live in a good world when you only hear about that. But yet, what about all the great things that happened prior to that and after that? I'm not here to dismiss that, because we give attention to it, and then unless we dive into it, but we see something, okay, I don't prefer that. And then you turn the corner in the preference, then you figure out a way to eliminate that. And we actually are eliminating to a degree.
For me, it was much more of like an intellectual understanding of it before I allowed myself to physically feel it.
Because you had to physically feel it before you even knew it.
No, that's how I knew the different states, etc.
Yeah.
But I had to intellectually walk myself through this.
Yeah.
And so I started to sit there and I'm like, okay, how can I be worthy if the worthiness I'm creating is a subjective idea, not objective, Why? Whose idea of worthy am I trying to fulfill? Mm-hmm. Is that my own? No, I'm going off of the rules of society.
The objective.
What my parents will think, what my friends will think, what my colleagues will think. That, as soon as I grasped that mentally, I'm like, wow, I'm living in this weird, arbitrarily created set of rules. And I'm like, why am I living within this box that says you'll be happy when you accomplish A, B, C, D, and E?
Yeah.
As soon as I intellectually wrap my mind around that, it allowed me to then let go when those thoughts would come up.
Yeah.
And I'd go, oh, this is the mind again saying, can't be happy, don't deserve to be happy, you haven't done this today. Wait a second. I don't have to give in to this collective conscious idea. You know what I mean? And I let go of it.
Well, and the cool thing is, when you start to understand that, the collective conscious, I am the collective consciousness. So if I don't take responsibility for me actually creating the box I'm sitting in, I am not getting out of it.
I'm glad that you said that too. Responsibility is a huge word because we have to realize we need to take responsibility and accept everything.
Yep. Because I'm like, when I remember a couple podcasts ago, I was telling the story about Mr. Schneider. And just today, that I don't know why it came up in conversation, but we're talking about it. And because this client had a similar story, so I brought up my story. But when I told the stories, the client's like, he should have never said that. I'm like, I'm glad he did. Because the truth is, when I tell these stories, these people, everyone from Mr. Schneider to my dad to Mike, their concepts I'm running through my brain. If I blame him, I'm done. Because I don't even know if the man's still alive to recorrect it and say he's sorry. But I don't need that. If I need someone to say sorry to me in order for me to get off the ground, I am done in this world. The world owns me.
I don't know if this is going too deep, but I love how
There's no such thing as too deep.
But I just love that you said that because you're right. It's your mental impression of yourself playing out through Mr. Schneider, playing out through your father.
I was the
and
author.
Until we accept that, we won't see change in the outside world. It is us reflecting ourselves at every moment.
Let's go even deeper. Prior to the moment when I sat in front of him for him to say that, I had to exhume and feel that, and he just reflected back to me what I was thinking.
Yep.
But it was so deep that it shocked me. So I was the author of that story, and I was the director and the actor, and he was just an actor in my story, and he said it back to me. I'm like, damn, he read the lines. Holy shit. And why I got upset
That was beautiful.
is because I wrote the fucking story, but I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to fucking hear it. And
no, I'm not going to accept this.
Fuck that. And then all of a sudden I heard it, and I got pissed. And
ego.
Ego. And then I fought back with ego.
Yep.
But then when I left, I'm like, no, this is never going to happen again. So I rewrote the script. And I continue to rewrite the script because I am the script writer, the director, and I'm the main character in my role. So any other co-actors that sit in front of me and they say something like, I can't believe that person said that. I'm like, wasn't it brilliant? Because if there's no conflict in the story, like everyone's agreeing with each other, like that's the beginning of a story. Hey, they're all friends. I'm like, wait, here it comes. Bam. And then we have to then resolve it. This is how life is. So life, we go into something and then there's a resolution to it. And it's kind of like the hero's journey. You're peacefully at home. Then you decide to step outside and you get lost in the wilderness. And then you have to find your way back. And what are you trying to do? You're trying to get back home. Where is home? The present moment. It isn't this heaven up in sky. The present moment is heaven on earth. We fall in and out of it. I fall in and out of being worthy and unworthy all day long. It's just now when I recognize I'm unworthy, I laugh. I don't get upset.
So we discussed the feelings of lack, unworthiness, not deserving of certain things. And now we can see those as mind-created concepts, right? Mm-hmm. So then Frank just brought up another great point, which is
I did.
rewriting the story.
Rewriting the story.
And this is crucial.
Yes.
So let's kind of now jump into this.
Get your white out.
But,
actually, you don't need white anymore. You got like...
So how the mind works is it begins to thread the needle of all your past stories that you carry with you to create a comfortable, sound experience that you're calling reality, okay? And so in order to change these painful experiences, or I shouldn't say change, in order to grow and complete the story, you must revert back to what you found painful or found uncomfortable or found or were upset about, whatever, and change the story. This is how you elevate to that next level, because your mind needs to weave a new pattern for you to carry. So, Frank, go.
So like you could be in a situation. So you have this linear perspective of story, and we're not here to deny that. So, like I remember,
it's how we like process everything. Yeah, like a computer.
Well, it's part of the physical world of a three-dimensional one of time, of space. Linear experience is part and parcel of it, so it's not to be denied. But when we talk about this quantum world we live in, the quantumness is what created the three-dimensional one of time. So within that, we have the physical world. So, Newtonian physics works. It's predictable physics. But quantum physics is where the energy that created the predictable physics came from. We still don't know why there's gravity, but hey, we know how to work within it. But what Mike is talking about getting out of, correct me if I'm wrong. So if I was, I have a memory of myself when I was 18, and it's very vague. But if I go back to a period in time where I did something that I wasn't proud of, that wasn't collaborative with another human being, maybe the opposite, against them. And I try to go my life avoiding it. And then when a situation, circumstance comes up that's very similar to it, I get a ding because it didn't feel good. It felt bad. Even though I was the procurer of the illness or whatever I did, ill will to the other person, I was the one doing it. I still didn't like it. I felt bad. Every human being goes through this. A lot of people are really good at hiding it, but it does affect them.
I know what you're talking about, and I can feel it. I know what you mean.
Yeah, I could sit in this present moment and go back to that moment in time. I can't change the circumstance that happened. I can't change the story. I could change the dialogue of the story, though. So I can look back and say, yeah, what I did, I'm not proud of. But you know what? I forgive myself. Because what I did to that person, and again, I'm just using this metaphorically. I'm not talking about an actual thing here. So if anyone comments, what the hell did you do? I'm like, nothing. It was done to me. No, but so you go back to that time and you look at it and say, you know what? I shouldn't have done that. I wouldn't do it now. But if I have never done that, would I be as compassionate to other human beings if I had never done that? And I won't really know the answer, but I'm going to tell myself, yes, I'm more compassionate because I did that uncompassionate thing. So once I feel that, going back to when I was 18, to that situation, in my imagination, and rewriting the way I looked at it, literally changed my history at the moment I'm in right now. I literally changed my history.
Because we are a big computer. How we process this information, our brain continues to run the story. So if Frank is going, man, I'm this piece of crap, I can't believe I did this, whatever, and he holds on to that, then the mind has to weave a story that allows that pain, that suffering to continue.
Yeah, so
until that's forgiven and he lets go of it, the mind will weave that same pain into his experience. Am I describing that appropriately?
Yeah, because so a lot of times everyone will go through this. They'll forget about it. But then a circumstance comes up that's similar and you get a ding, like, oh shit. So then, then a day or two might go by and then you'll forget it again and life will go on. But then it always haunts you. But you can go back to that time and forgive yourself. It's almost like giving giving your younger self a hug. And when you do so, again, these stories we tell are just permission slips. They're not the true causation, but there is a correlation. The true causation, again, I'm going to keep saying this, goes way beyond the scope of we can see. It's almost like trying to touch this tip of the finger with this tip of the finger. You can't do it, so stop trying to do it. But you can see the correlations in things. The causation is deeper. We know there is a causation, but I don't know the causation to why there's gravity. But I see correlations within the field of gravity so I can exercise and stay safe using gravity.
As soon as we go back and accept and forgive ourselves for these past experiences that we have been carrying with us for years on years. And guys, this is an array of stuff.
And then ask yourself this, how do we do that? Like, how do you go back? Because this is a question people, and I had a problem with
As
too.
it comes up, to let go.
Yeah, but why do you know let go?
How it feels.
Yes. Because why did you feel bad? When you think about this, we don't know anything that we've done was bad in a sense. Yes, it wasn't preferential. It didn't work in the field of expansion. It slowed it down. But that then taught us, like, the 6-month-old or 7-month-old kid that's just learning to walk that keeps falling down. Are they making mistakes or are they learning to balance? So a lot of times people would say, I wish I knew then what I know now, or I was an idiot back then. And I'm like, why were you an idiot back then? It's like, well, I didn't know what I know now. And I'm like, well, you're an idiot now. They're like, why? Well, if you're referencing off, 10 years from now, you're going to know more. So you must be an idiot now if you're holding on to that concept. That's a poor concept. You were 18. You knew in that moment. But every moment that actually comes after it, you're always judging that prior moment. And this is how we get into that feeling bad. Yes, I knew at the moment when I did that it didn't work. But then the forgiveness, but I didn't. So went on and made the other person feel worse. But in the moment now, when I have a thought that doesn't work in my favor because I fell into the state where that thought was, the thought didn't bring me into that state. I fell into that state. And why? Because I get distracted, And, I want to get to a point where I want to say, well, I'm human. Like, well, that isn't human. That's distraction. Humans are above that. But you could say there's a barbarian in us, so to speak. And not any barbarians out there, I don't mean to offend you.
There's a ton of different masks, but
calm down,
what personas
Conan.
do we want to choose?
Conan's going to get pissed at me. He's going to call me, who are you telling about? It's like, but I believe humans, as we look as the human race, we are actually meant to be focused, meant to be steadfast. And we become steadfast and focused. We inherit the earth, as it said, right? The meek won't inherit the earth. Well, the meek means steadfast and surrender. When you surrender to the principles and laws, don't fight against them, and you stay focused, you will inherit. The beautiful thing about inheritance is you don't have to earn it. You just get it. But you have to be in the place to accept it. If you're nowhere around, if you're not in that field of surrender, if you're not in that field or that state of steadfast and focus, you can't see the inheritance that was given to you. And most people don't realize what is given out here. And you hear this all the time, and people take it for granted, but The oxygen level came up for everyone on this planet. The sun came up for everyone on this planet. Everything else is just a made-up story in the field.
Everything.
Yeah.
And we can't reiterate that enough.
Yeah.
We're living our stories in an experience.
And if you are living in a state of lack, there is lack. I'm not denying that. Like if I go to Alaska, it is cold. But you have to choose to go to Alaska. So again, we're trying to teach people from all walks of life, all over the world. They have the power within them
to begin to experience something different.
Yes. And this is where I think we move forward as a species. Giving someone something to eat will fill their bellies, but then it's always leaving them in that state of having to receive by somebody else, rather than teach them how to grow all the food and, actually
teach them to fish.
Teach them to fish, exactly. And we teach them to fish. It's the greatest thing in the world, because now they're not a burden and feel unworthy. They actually feel worthy, because once you learn how to fish, that is your state of worthiness. When you don't know how to fish, you're in a state of unworthiness.
A little over 2.5 years ago, Frank taught me how to fish, and it changed my life.
But we live in the desert. It's a whole other thing.
You know what I'm saying, though?
Yeah.
And it's this. It's the reason we're here. It's why this show exists.
Yeah, we're fishermen.
Yeah.
We're Simon and
everybody
and
and everybody can fish, man.
Yeah, everyone can.
That's what we're trying to tell people.
And now we want to take you on a charter boat and go deep sea fishing. That's a whole nother level, and I don't mean it really is. So as we go deeper with these thoughts, so we're going to start talking about the pragmatic aspects to do that. So everything that was once imagined. So we talked about imagination last time, and we're going to continue to talk about it, because that is everything. So when people watch the news and don't like what they see, they go in to the deep and imagine what they don't like, and they keep replicating it.
Why does all this keep happening to me? Life is so stressful. Oh my God, it's so overwhelming. What are you focusing on?
Yeah. So when you can imagine what the world would be like if you had your way, right? Unless you're a crazy motherfucker. You would most likely want to see harmony amongst everyone around you. All right? So in a pragmatic setting, find a place where there's no distractions. Close your eyes to the outside world. Stay present. And see yourself already in that place, not moving towards it. Already there. It's been in existence for 20 years.
And it's happening right now.
And the destruction, everything is a faint memory, just like the horse and buggy are to me. Because, actually when I grew up, there was horse stables right across the street from my house. It was the weirdest thing. I thought I was dreaming.
In New York?
Yeah, on Long Island, yeah.
What?
Yeah, it was freaking, I moved from Queens to Long Island when I was 3 years old, so I don't remember that. But I remember the guy across the street from me had a house, and behind it, they had horse stables.
That's crazy.
Oh, it was crazy. And I remember because the time I was 10 years old, they were gone. They put an indoor tennis court, because tennis.
No, because nobody would ride horses.
Yeah, nobody's riding horses playing tennis now. It's oh, shit. But it was weird. I would think, I'm was that a freaking dream I was having? But go back there. There's people on horse and buggy traveling around. So we go back there. But so just like horse and buggy is a faint memory. Imagine yourself already there, and destruction and fighting and competition amongst people are a faint memory. And then immerse yourself in, get into full detail. How would you be responding to your spouse, your children, your neighbors, your congressman, if there still are congressmen, right? There might not be. It might be a council. Who knows? But use your imagination and immerse yourself in the feeling, and then stop trying to figure out how to do it. This is because you can only figure out what's already been done, and then you're going to use the same tools that you used in the previous experience, but they don't work here, because just like my hammer and screwdriver do not work on my cell phone. It has no purpose in my cell phone. So you have to get rid of those tools. They're clunky. Yes, they were working in the moment in which I was using them, but they're no longer working in this moment. It doesn't mean they're bad. They're just no longer providing what I need. There's a whole new set of tools that we don't even know are there. So you have to stop trying to figure it out and just immerse yourself in the feeling. And that feeling will then create impulses. When you come out of this, imagine it's a thought. Just like the GPS, I use it all the time. I already put where I want to go. It's already set. It's there. Then the GPS tells me make a right, make a left, blah, blah, blah. And if I follow it, I will get to that destination in which I placed. I don't tell the GPS, okay, take me to the corner. Okay, take me to the next corner. Where are we going? I don't know. No, take me to San Diego. Boom. It's 300 miles plus away. And then it tells me how to get there step by step. That is our impulse. But you have to imagine, you have to be there.
So what Frank's talking about, I personally do this every day. I focus on an immense amount of peace and effortlessness and just flow. And so I allow myself to experience what peace is like and happiness. And I feel those emotions and I act as if, the day will work out exactly as it should. And I'm experiencing it in that moment. I can picture the conversations I'm having. I can smell the air. You can see it, and you want to get really detailed. You want to be able to feel, the room that you're in, feel the bed you're in. On that same note, I want to add a little elaboration. You want to keep this all in the now. So it's not picturing yourself as I will be happy when I get this.
Yeah,
you'll never get it. You're always going to be in the chase.
Yeah.
It's in the feeling as if you already have it. And so this sounds funky at home. People are like, what do you mean? How do I feel like I have something I've never had? Trust me, you can. If it's money you're looking for, we all know what money feels like and smells like.
Yeah, but it's the money. What it is what is the money going to grant you an experience? That's what you're.
But you see what I mean?
Yeah.
You want to get to the nitty gritty details. You want to picture the house that you're dreaming of. You want to picture the experience with that significant other and the love you would feel, as if it's happening right now. It's not when I accomplish this or when I get to that point, then I'll be happy. No, it's right now. How would this moment feel? That will draw these experiences to you.
That's the true difference, because that's a lot of people talk about the law of attraction.
It gets mixed up.
A lot of people are seeing themselves moving towards something, and they'll always be moving towards it.
Towards something.
Yeah. But what Mike started off like, he does this every day. The truth is, every human being does this every day. So
unconsciously or not.
Yeah, and so when you do it unconscious, it can waver into preferential and non-preferential. When you do it consciously, again, you would be a mad person to do it.
No, let's give him an example. Let's give him an example. Easy example. Okay, you wake up in the morning. Your alarm goes off. You already know today is going to be a bad day because it's a Monday. Yeah. So before you've gotten out of bed, you're planning out Monday, office. We got a meeting today. The day already sucks because you feel as it sucks. You've already set the tone for that day.
Yeah, and anyone's experience is like when they did something or they went into the office and they ran into a coworker and they got into an argument with them. And in their head they're saying, I knew this was going to happen. Why? Because you wrote the damn script.
Yeah.
But when you write the script, there's always ad lib, so you don't know exactly everything that's going to happen. It's not like Groundhog's Day type of situation. But you literally wrote this script, and you wonder why you got into an argument with your coworker.
When you give in, when you let go, and you watch how this unfolds in your preferential favor or whatever you want to call it, you will be like, I remember, I felt this. My mind was blown. Yeah. I remember being like, oh, my God, did I just really do this? Yeah. Like when I wanted to see certain things happen a certain way, you're like, a light bulb goes off. You go, oh, my goodness, I've been living my whole life with holding my own head underwater.
And not knew it.
Yeah.
And know this, because you're the writer and director, at any moment you could just say cut, take 5. And you could change it around. So it doesn't mean like, I have to go back to sleep tonight and start over in the morning. No, you could stop the scene at any moment and change it in an instant. We live in a quantum field. Even though the quantum field created this linear perspective, it can instantly happen. So I could be in the middle of an argument. I've done this before with Karen. Yeah, I have, and she'll contest that. Yeah. And all of a sudden, something's like, stop. And I'm like, honey. And I'm not like, I wasn't pandering to, I wasn't like you're right type of bullshit. I that pisses me off than anything. I'm like, and I'm genuinely like, you know what? My ego got a hold of me. I had to be right. I am so sorry. I started this whole thing.
I did that with my brother and my parents.
Yeah, and it's amazing. But in that moment, I was able to cut, and because I responded that way and took a break and slowed it down, the effects or the aftermath, it was actually almost like, wow. You know, it was like,
turned into a positive.
It's like when an actor screws up on a set, but then comes back off of it, and nobody knows other than the director, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, that was amazing. So, well, you didn't notice I screwed up, and I instead of like freaking out, I just switched it. It becomes even a marvel in the moment, because if you're heading in a direction, everything's good.
Character development.
Yeah. But if you're heading in a momentous direction and it's good, everything's good, it's easy to stay on track. But when you're freaking headed towards a cliff and you make a hairpin turn, that's the shit that lets us know we're in control. That's what I'm talking about. That's why we have these moments.
And I felt that in life too. I'm sure you.
Yeah.
That's that awakening moment.
Yeah.
Holy crap! It's about to go off the cliff again.
And how do we stay in control? It's simple. It's called being steadfast. Yeah. It's being focused, and we will inherit what's coming towards us. But the inheritance is not. We don't have to work towards it. We actually deserve it. We don't earn it in the way we look at earning. Like, oh, I put the time in. You could put all the time in the world and not get anything. And you could put notes like, why did this person get all that money? It's not fair. And I'm like, you have to understand the laws of physics in the quantum field to understand why that person has something you don't. And if you understood those, you would never want to change those laws. You just want to get into grooves with them. You want to actually become one with that law. Because do you really think it's fair that you work, 100 hours a week in order to make $1 million a year? That's absurd. That's really, no, it wouldn't be worth it because you wouldn't have time to spend the damn money.
To enjoy it.
Yeah, you'd be paying the doctors all the time. And, but
there's people out there who try to do that.
There are people that work their ass off and get nowhere, and there's people that just seemingly just float through life and things come to them. Now, they may not be intellectually understanding of these laws, but you don't have to be.
No.
Just like Tom Brady doesn't have to be intellectually understanding of physics and trajectory of wind speed and everything else to throw a football at 80 yards. He doesn't. I'm not saying he doesn't. I don't know Tom Brady personally, but he, I'm sure when he's chucking the football when
he's
he
not
was a
doing
kid,
the math before.
Yeah, it's like, okay, before I get out there, I know the trajectory and no. And there's a scientist that knows all that shit that can't throw a football 20 yards. You know, it's like, so knowing it and the ability to do things are in the inference. But the scientist gets a kick out of the measurement and that type of stuff. Doesn't really care about throwing a football. That's why they don't throw far. But yet, we all have a place in this field. We all have something in it. But you don't have to intellectually understand it. But knowing that whatever we focus on, we will move towards and will actually place into physical manifestation, the knowing is a huge component to this. They've done so many studies with this in placebo effects. Just telling somebody that this is going to cure the headache is what cured the headache. And why doesn't it work with everyone? Because not everyone believes this person that says it's going to cure the headache. So they have, even though someone says something to me, I don't have to buy into it. Like, how many people did Jesus come across that didn't heal? It was only the ones that believed what he was saying were healed. So not everyone's going to believe everything no one said. That's why you never get 100%. If you get lucky one day, you have 100% of the people heard you and listened and it worked. But it's how I feel will dictate what happens to me. Physics works whether I'm feeling great or feeling bad. It does. So if I'm feeling great thoughts are going to come in, and then I'm going to attach to one, and I'm going to run with it.
That's why you hear that phrase, bad things, come in threes. Well, you're focusing on one. Oh, God, this is that. Boom. Another thing hits you. Boom.
By the third time, you're like, what the is going
You
on?
finally let go.
Yeah.
You
Actually,
finally
it was
accept.
funny. A client of mine, she came in and she's rattling all this stuff. I was like, oh, my God. And I'm like, well, they say things at 3. I was like, well, I'm not done yet, and I'm already up to 4. I'm like, whoa. I'm like,
Well, all right.
how many times you
It's
have to
time
get
to
hit on the
do
head before you turn the corner?
Yeah.
Right? And it was funny because she was like talking about the third one, and I'm like, yeah, things happen at 3. And then she's on to the 4th. They're like, 5 things happened. And I'm like, oh, interesting. Well, the universe is expanding, so maybe it's that number is expanding. But it's funny. So in that moment, getting back to what we talked about earlier, when these things happen, how do you turn around? Give it a different story, like I did to the 18-year-old person.
That's it.
Change it, and it'll happen. Because the
And
truth
when
is,
well, hold on. People's mind will say, "Well, that's not the case. You're making no. That's also mine. Catch yourself. Go,
Yeah,
whoa.
because-
That's also me. That's the ego tugging on me. Say, no, it's like this.
because
That's all a program. That's
things
not
that
you.
happen in 3s is a story as well. And if you actually live by that story, you'll never get to the 4th bad thing, at least in that year or that day.
Yeah, there
Actually,
you go.
that day.
If you believe
Yeah.
that's true, you won't ever hit a 4th.
Yeah. Or like if you had 2, like shit, what's the matter? I'm like, that third thing's coming. You know it's coming.
I know it. And
Let's
then,
get
of
it over
course,
with.
it's going to show its
Let's
face.
get it over with. It's like, now you're running around all paranoid and shit, right?
This is it, guys. We give the meaning to everything.
Yeah.
To everything.
Yep. And why do we give it meaning?
Well, I mean,
Well, if you fall into a state and you're not conscious, you could fall into a state of bliss, being unconscious as well. And we call that luck. If you fall into a state of misery, we call that bad luck. There is no such thing empirically as luck. There's focus and there's distraction. So focus obviously would be considered good luck, and distraction would be bad luck. So when you're conscious, you would not choose a non-preferential. Now, what happens in the field around me, what's happening in the world, because there's so many people interacting that's making up the outside physical world, my control is how I perceive it. And I look, oh, this is interesting. Let me add to it, or let me move into another field, So it's not like people think, oh, if I'm in a great mood, this and this and this is going to happen. I'm like, no, if you're in a great mood, everything is good. On the 7th day, all was good at the end of Genesis. And what does that mean? I'm like, everything is good, period. You're just perceiving it to not be good. How do you know enough to know it's not good? Well, what happens is you get enough people that agree, oh, yeah, oh, great, oh, yeah. But I used to do this to my friends. I would tell a story and then start laughing, and I would get them to start laughing, and I'm like, this is not even fucking funny.
it happens all the time.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
But I did this on purpose to watch, and they see me laugh, so I start laughing. And at the end, that was the funny story. I remember telling them, these 2 elephants, one was in the bathtub, and he fell and slipped, and the soap fell, and I started laughing. They're like, what? And they're looking at me. And then my other friend started laughing because he was in on it. And then the one kid didn't want to be left out, so he started laughing. And we're all laughing. I'm like, dude, that's not even funny. It's like, well, I didn't want to not laugh. So I fell into it. Then it's like, so now to free him from the anguish of being pulled in, my other friend came on, okay, let's all get it and do it to him. By then you got 5 kids, and then you probably get that one kid's like, you guys are morons, and just walked away. It's like, that's Jesus right there. Like, you're a bunch of morons, But that's
a great example.
Yeah,
Frank,
it's what we do.
It's funny.
That's what
is
happens.
What
we all agreed. So we
get
started-
very serious
Yeah.
about stuff too. Oh my goodness,
Oh,
are
yeah.
you serious?
You see what happened to
That's
me?
it.
Oh my
It's
God.
all how we deliver.
Yeah.
People. It's so funny. How can I tell people, about myself? I'm embarrassed of this or whatever. And it's all in your delivery of your stories.
Yeah, it's all in the delivery.
People
what gets
are
me out
so
of
worried
trouble.
about making something like them. How can I share anything good about what I'm going through when it's? I'm telling you right now, I can share anything and make it sound great. Or I can turn around and make any situation sound like it's just okay.
Yeah.
It's all in your delivery. What type of story do you want to share with people?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want this to be funny? Do you want this life to be a comedy? Do you want it to be a tragedy? However you're phrasing it, however you're spinning this to people, when you're talking about your pain, your suffering, don't you understand what I'm going through?
Yeah.
Guys, You're only faking yourself out. Let go.
That's it, yeah. But do it. It's like pull yourself in so quickly. You know, the great actors do this. They act so great that you forget they're acting. You actually forget the actor is that actor. They like, oh my God, Tom Hanks was Forrest Gump. I don't even know who the hell Tom Hanks is. That's Forrest Gump. And then you realize, no, it was Tom Hanks. He fooled every one of us. We got sucked into it. That's brilliance. But I'm also aware, what keeps me grounded, that was just a character. That's all it was.
Just like when you're with your parents, just like when you're with your family,
everyone,
just like when you're with your friends.
Yeah.
You're going to have a different persona with every person you're around.
And they onto you with the concept that you give them.
When you're the boss and you have a direct superior, where you've got a direct report, or when you're talking to your superior, all of these are these little roles and how we play.
Yeah. And when you
pick up on this.
Yeah, and the cool thing is when you start to really intellectually understand these and then practice these principles we're talking about.
You've got to practice.
When you do practice them, what you find out is you don't really give a rat's ass when anyone thinks about you. You just find it interesting.
Well, you start to find out it's everything you've thought about yourself.
Well,
becoming, playing out in real life in front of you.
I'm saying one person can call you an asshole and the other person can call you Mother Teresa. And the truth is, you don't get you can fight for their vetting of you, but you don't get that choice. Just like I have the free will to choose how I see that person. No one's going to tell me, tell me a story so I know how to see you. And they start telling the story, and all I'm thinking, like, this guy's full of himself. It's like, now, it doesn't matter what they're saying. I still have the narrative to say how I'm going to feel about it. And if they do something that I labeled as good towards me, that's a good guy. Why is he a good guy? Well, look what he did. Well, in another culture, that might be rude. But in this culture, it's a good thing. So we set a parameter of, like, if they pass this litmus test, they're a good person. They're an honorable person.
This is the society's collective consciousness.
And I'm like, all right. And that person. Yeah.
Do they have a good job?
Yeah.
Do they go to college? Are they married? Do they have kids?
The thing is, we already know.
Do they pay their taxes?
We already know this. We know this. Everyone knows this. Why? Because whenever we watch movies, this person is doing something to this person behind the scenes. Nobody knows except for that person and the audience. But yet, this person's looked at as a good guy to the other characters in the play. And then this guy is looking like the villain. But one day, when you stay patiently, the truth will come out. And it does, because you can't hold on to it. But it's interesting. We have privilege to understand the information. But we also live in a life thinking, like, doesn't anybody see what's going on? I'm like, everyone sees what's going on. And the more patient, or I shouldn't say patient, because the way I look at patience is putting up with a place you don't want to be. I don't want to be patient anymore. I want to be where I'm at. So if it's in line, I want to be there talking to the person next to me. If I don't, I simply leave and get my coffee elsewhere. Patience, because patience is a very exciting thing. That person has patience. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, they were on line 5 minutes. They said, the hell with this. I'm like, well, how long would you stay in line for a cup of coffee before you said the hell with this? Like, what's your limitation of patience? Patience is literally putting up with where you don't want to be. Don't do that. Be there. You want to be in line getting your coffee or not. Don't say, I'm a patient person. I'm like, up to what point are you patient?
Well, again, that's the story.
Yeah.
For me to get through this moment, I must say I'm patient.
Talking about some people, it's like,
story.
God is patient. I'm like, God isn't waiting around for us to get this shit right. God's just off. God set up the structure of this. Whether you do it or not, he's not waiting for us to get it right. He's not waiting. Like, oh, I'm patient. I'm just going to smoke a cigar while you're coming. He's waiting for you. Finally, oh, we got one more. Oh, that guy's a slow bastard. But I'm living in eternity. I can wait all day. Like, it doesn't work that way. But that's the man-made story of the guy with the beard living up in,
of course,
reaching down, touching David's hand.
In fact, God is the coffee, the taste, the smell, that room, the floor he's standing on,
God.
That moment.
He's also manure.
It is. It is all-encompassing.
Yeah.
When Frank and I use the word God, we're not talking about some gentleman in the clouds looking down and casting wisdom or pain or suffering or happiness. No.
It's the all.
This is a pain that has been a story, that a fictitious creation from the mind. You know.
But yeah, we do that to actually because we're trying to figure out wrap around it. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, we use it. It's a tool to describe. You know, like an all-powering, like a source.
Yeah.
And there, it's absolutely serves a purpose. It's just unfortunate the way it's been twisted, you know.
Well, it serves a purpose till we don't need it any longer.
Current culture, you know.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, that meaning behind, you know, that Christ.
Yeah.
It's important.
But it is like most people you talk to when you bring this up, to some level or not, they understand it. And it doesn't matter what level. Like, I'm not here to say this is the level it ought to be at. I'm like, that's just the most ridiculous thing in the world. But they understand it. Now, there are people that intellectually understand it, can talk about it and this and that. And there are other people that just simply just get it. Like Tom Brady just gets how to throw a football. Like, you can't teach that. You can't. It's something you feel and it's innate. But there are, like, you can teach someone how to throw a football, but not the way Tom Brady does. You know, it's just a signature. Just like you can teach someone how to sing.
And none of us can do throw a football like Tom Brady. Tom Brady is Tom Brady, just like I'm Mike.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
No one can throw a football like Mike either.
No. Watch out, Tom. He's right on your ass.
No. He's very far from it.
He's waiting till you retire before he gets into the NFL. Yeah,
it's just so funny.
When Tom Brady retires, Mike is going to be an NFL quarterback.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, you might not have to. I think the guy's going to get to about 70 years old playing football.
When I get home, I'm going to smell the grass. I'm going to feel the football. And then you're going to see me in a year throwing that end zone touchdown.
You might want to smoke some grass before you do it. Yeah, it'd really help out. Does anyone use that word anymore?
Hell yeah.
Smoking grass?
Grass? Come on. That's going to never go anywhere.
I hope not.
And that's, The bumper sticker still exists.
Let me tell you a time when I was young. I remember coming home one time. It was St. Patty's Day. I was in high school. And, me and my friends got together and we were drinking. Like, we started like 11 o'clock in the morning.
Hell yeah. St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah,
Green beers.
Yeah. Everyone's Irish on that day.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember arriving home like in the late afternoon and I jumped in the shower because I was going to go out that night. And my dad's like, what the fuck? I get here. I'm like, what are you doing there? I'm like, I'm in the shower. And I was dropping the shampoo. I was dropping shit. I was drunk. You know?
Knocking stuff over.
And I come out of the shower and he's looking at me. And my eyes are red from the water. And he goes, come here. I go over. He's looking at my eyes. He goes, are you smoking the dope? And he said the dope. And I laughed. And I'll never forget this as long as I live. He took his fist and just jabbed me. Like, not even like quick, bam. I literally felt my ankles rattle. And I was sober in a second. I'm like, Dad, no, I was drinking. And I'm like, it's not called the dope. And he goes, oh, fuck.
The dope.
Don't correct me. And I'll never forget that.
He goes, thing you can do.
He goes, are you smoking the dope?
It's
like,
crazy.
No, Dad, I'm not smoking the dope.
But look at like the collective consciousness behind simply like grass, and how far we've come.
I'm going to stop bringing that term back.
Now it's medicine.
Even though I don't smoke weed, I'm going to, get some grass.
And in some states like Arizona, it's straight up legal.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to see how, because,
what's the story?
That's it. It's all this little story that's traveled throughout history.
Even that stuff, too, it's like we get to the nigger. Because once we finally get it all out there and everything becomes that way, I'm like, hey, that still is a permission slip. That's not the causation. People might argue with me. I'm like, no, there's a correlation. I grant you that. But it's a permission slip. But there's nothing wrong with it. But it's still a permission slip in order to allow you to go into a field that you've never been before. And there is something with the frequency there. I'm not saying it, but not everyone gets the same response. But there is a correlation, but it's not the true causation. And it becomes down a permission slip to allow you to open up. But guess what? When you enter into that field and feel it, it's familiar because you've been there before in a place that you don't remember. It's the only way we know. Otherwise, it would be so alien and foreign, you would freaking go psycho crazy.
Our most natural state is what Frank and I are talking about.
By smoking the dope.
peace. You know,
Peace.
it is.
My dad's
peace.
He's gonna kick
It's
my ass for
happiness.
telling that story. Dad, I'm still not smoking the dope.
Staying off
The dope. He said, proud to get father.
Hell yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
to him,
funny
I was
story,
like, I'm
though.
not smoking the dope. I'm just a dope.
I am just
Yeah.
a dope.
He's like Red from like the 70s
oh, that
show.
70s show? That's
Yeah.
funny.
You
I love that show.
freaking moron. Yeah. Yeah.
But again,
So that makes me Eric.
Even our parents, you know, and like I love using parents as an example because like we have to play this role of father, son, mother, father, or you know, mother, son, mother, daughter, mother, father, daughter. All this, these are all these like roles we play.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, Frank's dad is simply a spirit, like he is, you know,
Yeah.
and they're both playing their persona. They both have their role. We're all here together. We're all experiencing this wild ride that we call life, that we call experience.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, we have the ability to create the narrative we want. And the thing is, the true narrative that anyone will fall into is one where you're not harming somebody else because you don't have to look over your shoulder then. And we truly want to incorporate everyone, but we don't trust other people, so we do it without. But why don't we trust them? Because you don't have to trust in anybody. You just have to, if you trust your intuition, I trust everyone. I trust the thief will steal. So when I'm walking by the thief, my wallet's in my front pocket and they can't get to it. So I trust everything because I start to trust my intuition and it leads me down the path. So when I say I trust, it doesn't put me in a naive state, like walking down a dark alley and you get mugged and the cop's like, what were you doing down the dark alley? And it's like, why are you blaming the victim? The cop's like, well, what are you, a freaking idiot? It smelled nice. So there's some, you know, I'm sorry, there's some
Take responsibility.
Yeah, there's some responsibility
do.
there. He's not like fully blaming you, but now you know. You know, everyone knows not to walk down a dark alley, right? So to speak, metaphorically.
Yeah.
But you have to walk down the dark alley. You have to be in that state. But we actually have control over that. We really do, you know. And once we wake up and realize, you know, oh, wow, yeah, if you're going to walk down a dark alley, carry a flashlight.
It feels good.
What, walking down a dark alley?
Hell no.
Oh.
I've walked down the dark alley for too long in life.
Yeah.
You know, it's when you
Were you
realize, oh my gosh.
What were you doing in a dark alley?
I get what this is.
Smoking the dope.
Smoking the
The
dope.
dope in the dark
No,
alley.
but like, this is what it is.
Yeah.
It's the discovery of I'm in control. I'm playing
Yeah.
a role in everything I'm an experience.
Yes.
I am experiencing.
And literally, take this. So when you find this moment right now, it doesn't take long. Become present. Go into your imagination to what you would want to experience and feel as if you already have it. And drop the insistence on how. Because when I put the address in GPS, it's the same thing. It's the same formulation. GPS is just a fractal of our imagination, our higher self. That's all it is. It's a mere fractal. It doesn't even come close to it. It's like a pin on, you know, you can't even see it. It's that small compared to our higher guidance system. But you literally place yourself where you want to be already and drop how it's going to happen. It will show you how to get there. But when you're trying to figure out how to do it in your imagination, that's why I'm like, I got to clean these 5 bathrooms. I don't want this house anymore because I'm trying to figure out how it's going to happen. It's not your job
you
to
feel
figure
the
it out.
feeling and you let go.
Yeah.
And
like
know it's going to
happen. Can you
happen.
imagine it was my job to figure out how the layout of the land was? And I was the first person, God, and I think I've used this analogy before, but my son Francis, you're the first human being on the planet. What would you like? I'd be like, hot dog?
Yeah, right?
And he's like, you might want some oxygen. You know, all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, don't leave that shit up to me, God.
Yeah. What are you supposed to ask for?
Give me some regulations and rules, and how do I figure it out? I bang into a wall, and now I know there's physics and gravity. Okay, and then I warm around. And then I do this. Ooh, that worked. I did that. It didn't work. And what I mean is you can tell when something works or doesn't work. You can try to defy it, break it apart. You know, There are principles and laws that govern within the field we live in the three-dimensional world, one of time. And there's other principles that go out throughout the universe. Gravity happens to be a law that's here or near any mass of a planet or any mass that's floating out there. But there's other principles that are universal throughout the universe that apply here and can actually have you step over and see the game for what it is. And when you actually start to become more aware of them, you're not going to fully know them, because every time I come to understand it deeper and deeper, it's amazing. It's like I read a book like 20 years ago, and then I read it like a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, still, wow. It was like, I remember reading the book, but now it's like I'm in a different place, so I see with different eyes. So if I'm climbing up a mountain, I'm halfway, and I look at the valley, I'm like, it's beautiful. And now I'm 3/4 up. I'm like, wow. I keep saying wow. I get to the top, wow. And I walk over the other side. I'm like, wow. I'm constantly saying wow. But if I never turn around, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? You just see the ground in front of you. Step by step, nothing's ever changed. Or day by day, nothing's ever changed. But when I turn around, everything changed. And if you know that, you just keep moving with the same gait you always had. The same gait I had at the valley is the same gait as the last step I take on the top of the mountain. You just have to keep moving that way. My gait, my step doesn't get bigger as I get to the top of the mountain. It's the same. But if you keep moving, it seems like a miracle, but it's not. It's the next logical thing. But I have to keep moving in the direction in which you want to go. But if I go halfway up the mountain and come down, halfway up the mountain, come down, and wonder why I never made it to the top, in other words, you did double the work, but you didn't go. You just simply didn't go. It's not that you can't. You just simply chose not to go for some reason, some excuse or story you told yourself that disallowed you, a belief, a feeling. This feeling will not let me get past midway up the mountain.
This is why most people stop, from starting a business, from
Getting
getting out.
There's nothing wrong with that. Even if you went up and down halfway up the mountain, 30 years of your life.
Oh, this is too hard. Oh, this is this,
Doesn't matter.
And then no, absolutely.
Yeah,
but you see what I'm saying?
At any moment, you could transmute that and change it and then make it up. And it's interesting because it's not making to the top of the mountain. It's the transmutation of the manifestation that we marvel over. We don't marvel over what someone that lived in the ghetto made it to the point where they won the Academy Award. We marvel that they did the transmutation. They transferred. They became the alchemist. It wasn't the great movie. It was how they got there. It wasn't the money. It was how they got there. And it shows us we can get there. I might not win an Academy Award because I'm not into acting. And it's not even about that. It's not about the money. It's not about this. Those things will show up because they are representations of the outside world to let us know, hey, this shit's working. So it serves a purpose, but it's not the causation. It's the aftermath of the inside imaginative aspect. And when you're in control of it, you're going to be like, wow. Because even though you're in control of it, you don't know how it's going to come about. Just like a great movie. When I go to watch a movie, I understand the theme of it. I understand the actors are in it. But I have no idea until I sit there with my bucket of popcorn and watch it, just observe. And then I'm like, wow, that's what we came here to do. We came here to set forth an imaginative thought and then watch it come to birth. Not force it into birth, not grind it into ground and work your ass off. No.
Quite the opposite.
But grinding it ground and work your ass off will teach you not to do that. It will. So it serves a purpose. It's good for you. I'm like, yeah, it's good for you because it shows you it doesn't work. Yeah. So there's one way to learn. That's the hard knock way. It's like, shit, that didn't work. Well, try something new. What's that? The term of insanity, right?
Yeah. It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Yeah. It really is insane. But once the insane get it, they're actually no longer insane.
Well, technically, we're all insane and we don't really know it.
We're all insane and we're all sane at the same time.
But you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
Like, we're all out there. We're waking up, still feeling upset. We're getting
Yeah.
through life and going, why isn't this getting better for me?
Yeah, what the hell's going on? Yeah.
What? I'm doing the same thing I did the last 25 years.
Why
isn't this happening?
Yeah.
Why isn't it getting better? Weird. Might want to change something.
Yeah, it's like, And the thing is
But why we get comfortable?
Well, also too, every moment of every day is a spontaneous moment. We think there's a causation from the previous moment. There isn't, unless you drag the previous moment thoughts with you.
Exactly.
But every moment is a spontaneous moment. This present moment is spontaneous.
Every moment is new. Every minute is new.
We make up a story to create the fluidity of it or the linear perspective.
That's
of
it.
But it really happens now.
The mind needs a way to hold it together.
Yeah, exactly. But there's we have big bangs going on all the time. Boom, boom, boom. And it's like, oh shit, that was a hell of a big bang, right? Yeah, so smoking the dope.
I'm glad you shared that story with us this week.
So is my
Frank.
dad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he's
And so is your dad.
Yeah, he's going to probably listen to this and be like, a freaking idiot.
But I really liked this week because we got to focus on.
Yeah.
I feel one of the major reasons people don't relax, and that's what letting go is.
And me and Mike are talking about this. We say people. We're talking about me and him.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Him and I.
Our experience.
Yeah, but yet we actually have a simulate. We can correlate and see how other people are doing it. But I get it, and I still have to wake up every day and stay focused. If not, I could easily fall back into sleep. Now, once I know something, I can't unknow it, but I can temporarily have amnesia. And then oh, shit. Now it's like I don't even get pissed. I laugh now because it doesn't serve any purpose. Because there was a point where I started understanding these things conceptually. And I'm like, I guess, why are you upset? I should be further along. I'm spiritual. I shouldn't be getting upset that guy gave me the finger. I'm like,
Great story.
Yeah, I'm like, but last year before, I said, earlier when the guy gave me the finger, I was getting upset at him at least. Now I'm getting upset at myself. That's even crazier, right? I'm like, you're better off just, I was like, I wish I didn't know this shit. I'm like, no, it's.
That's another layer of the mind. That happens to me too sometimes.
Yeah.
I know exactly what you mean.
I'm getting upset because I'm getting upset. I'm like, that's a funny thing. It's funny. So then
it's the letting go of that.
Yeah.
Everything is letting go.
Yeah.
And when we say letting go, we're talking about relaxing.
Yeah.
Relax into the moment.
I don't know how things work out, but I recognize them when they do. I do. I recognize it when I do, but I don't know how.
Life works itself out.
If you're focused.
Every time.
But it works out if you're not focused, but not in the preferential direction in which you want. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, just get up and... I'm not telling people get up and just smoke the dope and have life work out for you.
No, exactly.
You have to have a plan when you smoke the dope.
Yeah. What's the vision? I
got to say, stop saying that.
Well, what's the vision?
What's the vision? And make sure it's one you want to experience.
What you focus on, you're going to experience.
And it's true. I'll tell you right now, because I've been practicing this and actually exercising it. There are times when I'm running in a story about my head, like someone does something and I got this whole story in my head, and all of a sudden I'm like, what am I doing? And then I pull back from the story. It actually happened recently. I was at the gym, and one of the trainers at the gym I'm friends with, I don't know what happened, but there was only a couple of people. It was pretty early in the morning. There was only a couple of people in there. All of a sudden, he you don't see this in gyms a lot. He got into an altercation with this other guy. And this other guy, I noticed, he was walking around. He sounded like he was on the phone. You could hear him loud. It's like, I don't give a shit. All of a sudden, he gets in his face. He's like, you got a problem? And all of a sudden, my instincts kicked in because I know this guy is my friend. So this guy must be a freaking asshole, right? Mm-hmm. So I was just sitting there waiting, because it wasn't like, the guy that he was getting an altercation, the guy at work there was a big dude. So, but after, the guy walked away and whatever, and I'm like, hey, you okay? He's like, yeah. He's like, yeah. I'm like, what happened? He's like, yeah. And the guy's just, whatever. I'm like, all right. So I knew in his head, he's like, letting it go. So I let it go. So I go back there. And all of a sudden, in my mind, I'm like, okay, if this guy comes up to me and does the same to me, I'm like, we're stepping outside.
That's what the mind does. Perfect example.
Then I'm like, what am I freaking nuts? So
Yeah.
I actually, in a moment, I turned it around. I'm like,
We do this shit all the time.
Instead of stepping outside, I turned the story around in my head, and I said, why not become friendly with this guy? And in 10 minutes, he came up to me and he said, hey, you. I'm like, yeah. He's like, hey, what's your name, by the way? And I shook his hand.
Mm-hmm.
I controlled that whole narrative.
Yep.
I did. It was weird.
We do this all the time.
But if I didn't let go, we would be like, you want to step outside? The guy's like, what the fuck for? I'm trying to work out. Yeah.
I've done that in my head a million times. Or, oh, man, this is what I should have said. You know, when you leave the conversation, you're like, if I get a chance again.
But I'm saying, if I didn't turn that around in my head, that story would have happened.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because I don't know where that it came. It was like I've never. It is. It's been a long time since a circumstance, situation like that happened, where a friend of mine was in an altercation. I'm talking years.
We've been conditioned to help our friends.
So I haven't had that experience, but now if that happens again, I'm actually going to look at it differently. But I was like, this guy needs a beating. Mm-hmm. You know, and I'm like, why did I go for that?
But that's also a condition. Yeah, I was going to say that's just from years of growing up, years of this.
But like here I am, like there's supposed to be this person that I don't want to use the word spiritual because we're all spiritual, but should know better. But
further on the path.
Yeah, exactly. And I laughed. I started laughing at myself. Oh my God, I'm literally like, look in the imagination. I'm like, we could take this outside. It was almost like a scene from like a Good Will Hunting. You got a problem?
I forgot who it was, but they described this type of thing where there's no, like on this path, there's no, something like that can come up at any point.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, you can be in the Himalayas meditating for 12 hours a day and still have that come up. It's not, it's not like things.
Picture myself in a cave with a freaking bald head and guy in robe. I'm like, you want to take it outside, buddy? We can do this.
You see what I mean? We picture it as a linear type of thing. Like, oh, I'm further along.
No.
But this whole experience is not linear. In fact, it happening right then was just a spontaneous thing right then. And
that's it.
We see it as linear, but it's not. None of this is linear.
And I got caught up in the old programming and how I respond to it. Because there was a point in time when if I didn't respond that way, it would have been disrespectful for anyone around. So even though it was always the awkward, weird feeling of getting into an altercation, even though I knew how to fight and did all this stuff, I never liked it. Never liked it. But I did it because, and the people are like, hey, I'm proud of you standing up for that guy. And I'm like, my fucking cortisol just went through the fucking roof, and I'm like causing cancer in my body, and you're fucking proud of me? Like, when you really think about that, I'm like, that's insane. But now I know that. So when that came up the other day, it was like, that was weird. Because I'm like, and in my head, I turned around and eradicated. Next thing you know, I'm shaking the guy's hand, and I got his name. And then when I shook his hand, I pulled him in. I'm like,
motherfucker.
If you're not nice to my friend. And then he looked at me, he goes, are you smoking the dope? I swear to God, it's the last time I'm going to say that tonight.
Yeah, this episode isn't going to be able to air on YouTube.
Yeah,
we're going to get blocked. It's going to be like, sorry, fellas, you used the phrase smoking the dope 11 times.
Yeah, I don't think that really. If that was the case, Snoop Dogg would not be allowed on the air. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. I think that was a great point though, because we're constantly going back to these.
Point was.
Oh well, I just mean the idea that at any moment, we can fall out of this.
Yeah,
and it's in the awareness that we bounce back.
See, that's where I realize
we're tuning into the awareness.
Yeah, that's where I realize
you were aware.
I've come a long way. I come a long way because I turned it around in a brief moment and turned around the concept of the other person.
And you knew you could.
And then it worked. It actually worked, And it wasn't like I was dishonoring the other person. Well, that's up to him, but he didn't see it that way either. But it's interesting because I get the narrative, I get to tell a story, and I get the whole and see how it work out. So yeah, it's kind of cool. So that's what happens. Things like that will constantly happen. But like I said, that situation hasn't happened in years. So my response was an old response. But the way I changed it was a new response, and I changed it quickly. So I'm like, okay, that's cool.
And
so now
you
it's
changed
a funny
it
story.
forever.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly.
all of these things come up in us
Yeah.
to just teach us about ourselves.
Yeah.
So that's just us.
Yeah.
Moving
If you
forward.
really want to know if you changed, place yourself in the same situation, circumstance, and see how you respond. That's why a lot of times when you start to change yourself, like, oh, I'm changing my attitude, why hasn't the world around me changed? Well, you really didn't change then because you're looking at the world from the same way. But once you accept the world for the way it is, the paradox is it then does change. But the reason it doesn't change is because you want to make sure you've actually changed, not just said, I changed. And what is change? I fully immerse myself in the feeling of change, not just say it. I can say I'm wealthy. I can say that. But do you feel it? When you're writing it down, do you feel like you're lying? Because if you feel like you're lying, it means you don't really feel it. Walk your way into the feeling of it. And that's, that's the gift. That's the alchemy in everyone's. I could go from being fearful into courage. I have to change states. They're the same thing. Like, we have 50 states in this country. It's the same country, but the state of Arizona is different degree of a state of, say, Alaska. But it's the same umbrella of country is what I'm trying to get at. So it's not an opposite. It's just a different state of the same thing. Which state do you want to be in? And when you get really good at this, you choose a state. Yeah, you're going to get distracted. But hey, at this point in my life, distraction is the art of discovery. All right? Maybe one day I won't be distracted, but I'm not waiting for that moment to not be distracted. Some of the funniest shit that I do comes out of distraction. No, it does, really. He's like, what the hell are you doing? I'm like, shit. Yeah, sorry.
Seriously, though.
Because if I didn't get distracted, that would be too straight. And I don't want to be too straight.
No, that's it.
But I spin the distraction around quickly, and I make light of it. I don't get upset. I used to get upset. But now I'm like...
a very normal response in this world. You know what I mean?
It's acceptable normal response, but...
Yeah,
now,
I should say it's a socially conditioned acceptable response.
Now it's just like, people like,
Once you see it, now you...
And what's funny, because when I do something stupid and I laugh about it, everyone starts... No, what happens is people don't laugh at me, they laugh with me. And then they're like, why'd you laugh at them? I either laugh or feel embarrassed. And I spent a lot of my life feeling embarrassed. I don't like that feeling. I'd rather just laugh. It's just so much better. Now everyone's forget what I did, and they're just laughing. And it's like, all right, it's a quick way to spin that around, and that, that's my shtick.
Well, in that spin, that's what we're doing here at Perspective Shifts.
Yeah. But the thing is everyone's spinning it. Spin it into your favor, but don't try to coax someone into spinning, like some news outlets try to spin a story. I'm like, tell it how it is. I don't need to spin a story for you. I'm spinning it for my own good.
That's it. I'm
not going to spin it to get you to like it. I'm like, I don't care what you... I'm spinning it so I don't feel bad. So I'm spinning the story of that guy's an asshole to... I don't know his story to, like, why don't I just become friends with him before I take him outside? Yeah, so you know what I'm saying.
And that's the way to live.
So here, take it upon yourself to take the time to yourself and go into your imaginative thought and picture, even if it's simplistic, what your day's going to look like, what your life wants to look like, and place yourself already having it, not going to it, having it, and then see what comes of it. Hold on to the feeling. Forget about how it's going to happen. No one ever knew.
And hold steady knowing that will come. Not constantly thinking about it.
No. Yeah.
It's you let it go.
Let it
you
go.
You know.
Go about your day.
Yep.
And I say start small, and then you realize everything is small. But start small, because what I mean is start with something, whether it happens or not, it's no big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And watch it happen. You're like, holy shit. And that's the synchronicity is just allowing you is letting you know that the laws that you're actually working within are working.
Yep.
That's really what it is.
Showing you're on the right path. That's
what it is. There's no other.
It's showing you, you're here. You're present.
Yep, it's working. It happens in the other way too, but yeah, just take it. You deserve it. We all
really do.
Yeah. So that's our perspective shift for this week.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah.
As always, it's great to speak with you and be here.
Yeah.
we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah.
If you like what you're hearing, go ahead and subscribe below. Leave us a comment or send us an email. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions.
Yes, at least Mike would. I would too. I'm just kidding.
Thanks,
All
guys.
right, peace out.